Capture the passion.
Welcome back to CPTP Season 3, Episode 4. My name is Jorge Ramirez. And today we have a very special guest, Ana Camarena Moreno. And she's a DACA student. So we're going to dive into that conversation of DACA student and what does it mean. Ana, tell us about yourself.
Good morning. I'm a DACA recipient. I've been in the program since a little bit before the program ended. So basically all my educational career after high school. And I'm currently still in school. I graduated last May with my bachelor's in child development at Cal State LA.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I'm still continuing my studies because I look forward to becoming a pediatrician.
Nice.
So I'm currently doing a post-bac program at Cal State LA to get all the medical requirements to get into med school.
Right. So tell us, did you go straight out of high school into Cal State LA for university? And what was the process like? Was there any challenges, anything that you felt like this is just not going to be worth it, or I'm not going to be able to get the resources? What was it like?
Yes, I went straight after high school, but I feel like I had a different perspective on it because I knew I was undocumented, but I didn't know what that meant.
Right.
So obviously in school, when it's going into our high school, our senior year, they're starting to push us to apply to colleges and do all that application process. I didn't know the difference in my situation, and I didn't know anyone. So I didn't really know who to reach out to.
Right.
And at the time, I was really close with one of my teachers. She was my history teacher. And I told her because I figured I really wanted to go to college, but I just didn't know what that meant in my situation.
Yeah.
So I reached out to her and I told her, I'm like, so I'm undocumented. I don't have anything. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. So she wasn't aware either. She'd never had any student like that in the situation. Or I'm figuring nobody ever opened up about it.
Right.
So then she helped me do research and we looked into, I could still apply, but I wouldn't get the financial aid and that. And coincidentally, at the time, they did a AB 540 event at my school. And I was involved, but in a different aspect of dance.
Right.
And we got into a conversation with the lawyer, and she was telling me, oh, well, you can apply to DACA, the program that had started in 2012. And we started looking into it, but it was kind of difficult because I needed my dad's approval, but he's not in the picture.
Okay.
So then, again, coincidentally, I had a really close friend, and she's a paralegal for immigration lawyer.
Okay.
And we brought up the topic with her, and she's like, why didn't you ever tell me? Like, I can help you with this. So she pulled strings here and there.
Yeah.
She was able to prove that I've been in the country since I was 40 days old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you weren't born here?
Mm-mm.
No, well, that's right. Hello. Where's your family from? Where are you from?
Guadalajara Jalisco.
Jalisco. Shout out right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so my mom always likes to say que no soy ni de aquí ni de allá.
Yeah.
I was so small.
You were born there, but you were brought here. I was brought here, I think I went in September, 4 months. I was born in Michoacan. And it has been a tough struggle, but nothing to what you've gone through. So now you're finding the resources, you're finding friends that are helping you get to that point. And what happens next?
Well, it was tricky because we needed to find the paperwork because it's a tough process. You have to prove that you're under a certain age, that you've been here for a certain amount of time. Before 2012, I believe they were doing at the time.
Okay.
You have to show that you've been in school, everything you've been doing in the country. And I don't know how she did it. She was able to manage to do it before the Trump administration took it off. Because it was in that period of time where he didn't want it.
Right.
So they had just ended it. I went in, I think, a month before it was canceled.
And you were able to prove everything and submit all the required documents to get into the program to be able to have that pathway.
Because I've been in school since I got here.
Right.
I've done everything here.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. So now you go through that process, you get approved, and it seems as if there's a good opportunity for you to continue with your studies. What was it like now applying to the universities?
If I'm honest, it was, I guess, the word I can best say was embarrassing,
Mm.
because I was seeing a lot of my fellow peers were like applying to all these universities and they had really high hopes, and I didn't know where I stood, if
Right.
that was like even an opportunity for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I kept everything to myself.
Yeah.
I know for our school, my high school, they made it an assignment for us to apply to 8 colleges,
Okay.
and everybody was sharing.
Yeah.
Oh, I applied here, I applied there. And I would just say, oh, I applied, but
Yeah.
I never gave specifics. Because I was just embarrassed of going into depth of it.
Were the universities asking for certain requirements?
Yes, they were asking for my permit, and I also had to do an additional application, the AB 540, so that I wouldn't get charged the international cost.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us, what is AB 540?
It's just an application that schools provide so you don't get the international fee.
Oh,
it's kind of like DACA in that you have to prove that you've been here, you're getting your education here, how long you've been in the country.
Yeah. So then how many schools did you actually apply to?
I applied to 8.
To 8. You did apply to 8 of them. And how many did you get into?
I believe 6 of them.
Wow, look at you. All right. So you had the grades, you had the GPA, you had the will and determination to go to school for your university and study, but the challenges now became more of the document, whether you have the proper documentation to prove that you've been here. Now you're in, and what's it like being at the university as a DACA recipient?
I would say isolating, because I knew my situation, but I felt, I guess, different. And it wasn't until like I started looking more into like if there were other students like myself,
right,
which is when I started to like more get involved and find other students. And at that point, when I met other students that were undocumented without the DACA permit, I kind of felt a little bit more privileged, because I knew if I'm struggling and I have that permit,
right,
I can't imagine what they're going through without it.
Right. Wow. I can't even begin to imagine the level of stress in you or your mom, for that matter. How did you reach out to your classmates? Was it just an open question? Hey, so are you documented? What's your immigration status? Or how did that conversation come up?
I was looking for like a space to be, because I would be on campus for the majority of the day because I was commuting. And I happened to stumble upon the Dreamer Center at Cal City LA. And then I started looking more into that, and they were offering community gatherings. And I signed up for the emails that they sent out. And I remember they sent one about the first community gathering they were going to have. And they were talking about initiating a club with undocumented students and allies. And I was like, oh, maybe I should join, This is my my space.
The commonalities with students there. And was there a lot of students? What was the outcome of that? The first one that you attended?
There wasn't a lot. I think 10, including the organizers. So it was pretty small. Yeah. But I started to see that it's not just people with the permit. It's just overall, in general, undocumented students.
What's the demographic like? Where were these students coming from? Were they all just coming from Mexico? Were there other countries that the students were from?
For the most part, it was Mexico.
Mexican students?
But I do know there's more of a demographic from different areas.
Yeah. Wow. I'm hearing you talk, and I think back to my family struggle. Again, we came into this country illegal, and at that time, it was far easier. Well, I wouldn't say easier, but it was different coming into this country illegal. The way we came into this country was, my dad came first, with my late uncle and late grandfather, and then my mom came with us. Then eventually we congregated somewhere, and we established our lives here. One of the biggest fears that my parents had, and they would tell us, was, don't make any noise. Like, literally, go to school, keep your mouth shut, do the work, don't argue, don't even ask any questions, just stay under the radar. And I never understood why. My mom would say, it's important for you not to get into any type of trouble, because they're going to send us back. And in my mind, as a child, first grader, I remember thinking, back where?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have that whole concept of understanding that, oh, we're here illegally and this is not where we should be. It wasn't until far later when I realized, oh my gosh, like I give my parents a lot of credit for what they've done. Were you aware of your immigration status in high school, middle school, elementary, or was this something new to you?
I was aware. I don't think I knew the extent of it,
Mhm.
but I remember having that same conversation with my mom when, they would do immigration ratings and stuff.
Yeah,
I remember her saying we have to keep ourselves quiet.
yeah.
We can't, because we can go back to
Mhm.
Mexico, which I knew that, but I didn't know what that meant, I guess, legally.
Right.
I was just like, okay, well, I don't have the documentation I need, but I didn't think that affected me in any way. It wasn't until looking into school
Yeah.
that I was like, oh, there is a difference. I was not aware of it.
Mhm. So now you're at Cal State LA. You're part of a coalition, and you see other students. Have you seen it grown since you've been there doing your undergrad?
I did,
Mhm.
because at the time, we I'm part of Surge, which is a student organization.
Mhm.
That program had been there since 2016, but when students graduated, it kind of just stayed quiet.
Mm.
And when I came in, they were starting to bring it back up.
Okay.
So it was like looking into recruiting more students and finding other undocumented students on campus, because there is resources.
Right.
It's just we don't know about them.
Let's talk about those resources. What type of resources are out there?
There's a lot. I didn't know this
Mm-hmm.
throughout my whole journey in college, but a Garesen, if you're in college, it can be community. They pay for your DACA renewals as long as you apply on time.
Mm-hmm.
There's scholarships. I know Cal State LA offers one every semester from the Dreamer Center.
Nice.
So there's a lot of programs out there. It's just really hard finding it.
I'm curious to know. I understand the fear
Mm-hmm.
of talking about your immigration status, especially when you feel threatened
Mm-hmm.
and saying, "Oh, there's a possibility that we might get deported." Um, what was it like as a student doing your undergrad and reaching out to professors for help, for guidance? Did you feel that maybe they weren't going to help you? Did you feel a sense of even threat by them? What was
Mm-hmm.
that like?
I felt fear.
Mm-hmm.
I very limited people I told, especially professors,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't know why I've had this view that they would see me differently,
Mm-hmm.
or they would have, I guess, less hopes of what I can do,
Right.
because there's such negative stereotypes with undocumented
Mm-hmm.
students. So I was like, maybe I keep it quiet because I don't want their perspective on what I'm doing or how I'm performing to change.
To change, yeah, yeah.
And I had never heard of anybody supporting. I think throughout my 4-year journey as an undergrad, maybe one professor announced on their syllabus about the Dreamer Center.
Oh.
Out of everyone that I've had, it was maybe one or two.
Mm-hmm.
So it was never something they prioritized to inform
Right.
students on either.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine that sense of fear of just threat of I'm not going to be here. I want to dive into how you felt as a student. Did you feel that you were going to be successful? Did you feel that this is something that I can accomplish and be able to do something with a degree?
Mm-hmm.
Or was it more of like, I'm just going to write it through as much as I can and whatever happens, happens?
Mm-hmm.
What was your mindset going through your whole undergrad?
My first year, I was going in very strong because
Mhm.
I had just gotten my DACA permit. I was like, okay, now
I
I'm
got this.
set. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then my second year, I was still a little like iffy on it.
Yeah.
But then halfway through, I had to renew my permit, and it was when COVID started. So they were getting delayed a lot. So my permit expired. I submitted everything on time.
Mhm.
Everything was good. I hadn't committed any crimes.
Good.
But because of COVID, everything was getting delayed.
Right.
And they weren't giving us any updates on anything. So at some point in the middle, I lost it for about 5 months, which was semi-ideal because we were in the middle of a semester, so it didn't affect anything. But during that time, I lost my job, my employment. They were trying to help me out, but they're like, if you don't have anything, you can't. I was close to graduating as well. So I felt like all the doors were kind of closing on me. So at that point, I was like, okay, I feel like I'm doing everything right. I'm pushing to do it. But if I'm so dependent on this permit for the rest of my life and things like this keep happening, what's the point?
Right.
It kind of just felt like I'm doing everything right, but this permit, even though it's like I've set a solution for myself, it feels like it's still holding me back.
Yeah.
And I lost a lot of hope at then. I was like, okay, I'm gonna get my bachelor's, but if I have to renew it every 2 years and these things keep happening, well, they're gonna keep firing me from the job.
Yeah. So do you have to renew it every 2 years?
Mm-hmm.
Is there an outlet or a possibility for you to apply for? What would be the next step for you to get legal status here? Would it just be
Nothing.
citizenship?
It's not a pathway to citizenship.
It's not a path. Okay.
No.
So what is it like?
What do you mean?
So you're a DACA student. You have to go to school, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you're done with school, then what?
It's just I can keep the permit, and it's just allowing me to work.
The work permit. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Again, thank you for sharing this experience with you that you've gone through. Now you renewed your permit.
Mm-hmm.
We're in the midst of COVID. You eventually get it renewed, right?
Yes.
And then what's it like having it back, knowing that, okay, now I can get an employment, continue with school, not have an issue? What did your hopes change?
It did. Like I said, I started really strong. I
Mhm.
felt really confident having it. But when I got it back, and because it's a whole situation, like my ID is like it's joint with it. So if I lose my permit, I lose my ID.
Oh,
My
okay.
medical insurance, everything
Everything.
it goes along with it.
It's tied to
Mhm.
DACA status. Okay.
So going through all those complications of renewing everything I had, I was very discouraged.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I was about to graduate,
Yeah.
and I needed to start looking into getting a job with my degree.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like I was like, for what? If this is gonna continue happening, what's the point? And I remember I told my mom now, I'm like, I feel like at that point I was really depressed because it felt to me that I was doing everything right.
Mm-hmm.
I've done it since I was a child. I've went to high school, I graduated, I went to college. I'm doing everything they ask for. Like I said, I'm not committing any crimes.
Right.
I was like, what else are they asking of me? I feel like I'm doing everything correct, but they're putting so many barriers.
Right. And what were some of the barriers that you felt were not going to be um, able to overcome? Like, was there something that you felt, I can do all of this, but there's that one thing that I just can't seem to get over? Is it just the renewal process?
Mm-hmm. Because it's so unpredictable.
Mm-hmm.
Like the system as it is so like strict. I can't apply. I have to apply exactly 120 days before it expires. Because if I do it before, then they can reject me. I don't know what it is about the timing. And I would ask my paralegal, I'm like, well, if things are getting delayed, shouldn't that be an exception?
Right.
She's like, no, I don't want you to risk it because they've rejected other applicants that I have.
What's a turnaround? So you applied 120 days before.
Mm-hmm.
How long does it take for them to get an answer to you?
Maybe 3 months. Initially, it was 3 months.
3 months.
That time, it took about 6 months.
Oh, wow.
And it expired.
Yeah. So 3 months. So that means for 3 months it would have lapsed.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And they give you nothing. A renewal is different because you obviously know as long as you didn't do anything and you're good on your record, they don't give you nothing. They just say, oh, well, we received it. Yeah. And the date they receive it. But there's no updates like it might take this long.
Yeah.
Nothing even with COVID. I would imagine they would say, okay, well, we have it. It might take this amount of time more. They don't give you anything.
Yeah.
They kind of leave you blind out there.
Just wait. That's the waiting game. That's all you have to do. Mm-hmm. So then you get your renewal, and then every 2 years you have to continue to renew it. Yes. But the only catch is that you have to be a student.
No, not necessarily. It's just basically be a good citizen.
That's it.
Even though you're not a citizen. Yeah.
Okay. So you can finish school, get a job, be a good citizen, and that will continue to renew. Mm-hmm. Is there any length of that program, or is lifetime?
I hope lifetime because it's still kind of
It's up in the air.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because they still wanna restart it, but then other people want to take it off because they say it's unconstitutional.
Hmm.
So it's still very.
How does that make you feel? What's your personal opinion with that?
It gives me a lot of uncertainty
Hmm.
because, like I said, I have a lot of hopes of what
Yeah.
I can do, but not knowing what my future will be with it, it just makes me feel I'm not safe. And I always say, like, I understand I'm not from this country, I get it, but why don't they make it easier for us to get something if we're doing everything right?
Right. Yeah. That was exactly what I was thinking. You're going to school. Uh, you're being a good citizen. You're in good
Mm-hmm.
standing and everything. What's the big deal? Why not give you not necessarily just a straight pathway, but give you at least that opportunity to
Mm-hmm.
apply and show that, hey, you're in good standing. So let's talk about your goals. What are your goals now? You're starting your pre med.
Mm-hmm.
What's next?
Med school.
Okay.
I really want to be a pediatrician.
Hmm.
I've always had it in me. I don't know what it is. That's I think why I did child development.
Hmm.
I did child development first. I didn't go straight into med school given my situation.
Hmm.
I kind of wanted something that I could look back on if
Hmm.
I couldn't make it. But when I started looking into child development, I really fell in love with
Yeah.
anything related to children. And I feel like in the end it gave me a great opportunity to see child development.
Hmm.
But then now that I'm going into my passion, which is medical, I get both aspects
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense.
No, yeah, yeah, it does. Um, it's we've the previous guests that we've had so far this season have um, an, an understanding of child development, and it's coincidental that now here you're talking about child development as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what you want to do is you want to continue with your education to continue to further yourself and have a career. Do you see yourself having a career here in the United States, or do you see yourself going back to Mexico?
I think I see myself more here,
Hmm.
but I also would like to take what I had learned back to Mexico
Hmm.
at some point
Yeah,
because a lot of children over there don't have the same opportunities we do here.
right.
And I think what I've gained here in this country, I want to share it back to those at home.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have a lot of family back?
Yes.
Yeah.
The majority of my family is in Mexico.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
So now let's talk about some of the resources that you found. You touched on a couple of them. Have there been any other barriers that you've seen with those resources that makes it seem like, well, they say they're there, but they're not really there?
Mm-hmm.
How was financial aid? Was financial aid helpful to you and realistic, giving you some form of assistance that gets you through? Did you have to go through scholarships, private
Mm-hmm.
loans, or what has your resources been like?
For financial aid, I don't go through financial aid. I go through the California Dream Act, which
Okay.
is the financial aid that California provides,
Hmm.
as long as we're able to fulfill the requirements. So
What are
I
the
don't
requirements?
just having the DACA permit, being
Okay.
able to prove that I'm gonna go to a 4-year college,
Mhm.
but that's only applied here in California.
Okay.
They have that help for undocumented students. It's a similar to financial aid. It's just
Specifically for
mhm.
that type of student.
And it's not the same as financial aid, as in the amount we receive. We only receive tuition. That's
Only
it.
tuition. Okay. Okay. Do you see that, or does it go straight to the university?
Straight to the university.
Okay.
I think every now and then I got lucky and I got like $200.
Yeah.
But knowing expenses,
Yeah.
that's not enough.
Yeah. So you're getting financial assistance, which is great. Did you ever needed to pull out any type of scholarship or loans for your costs of going to school?
I did a few scholarships, but the majority came out of pocket. And I think that was more so of my fear
Mm-hmm.
of not looking into the resources and like of what I needed to do.
But now that you know the resources are there, you don't
Mm-hmm.
you know that you can take advantage of that to
Mm-hmm.
don't have to pull out a loan or out
Yeah.
of pocket. Was the application for the scholarships difficult, or were there barriers?
A lot of barriers. I guess I was naive, so I would
Mhm.
look at everything. And then when I started looking at eligibility, well, you're undocumented.
Mhm.
A lot of them aren't for undocumented students. So there's a smaller selection of applications.
Mhm.
And it's like essays talking about your experience.
Mhm.
And I think that's where I was kind of hard headed and I didn't do them. At the time, I didn't feel comfortable speaking
Mhm.
about my journey. So I just wouldn't do them.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, I don't want to talk about that in order to get the money. Although I see why, but it would just stop me completely.
You triggered me there when you talk about this sense of embarrassment. That's the way I felt, and I remember feeling that a lot. In one of the things that's, as an adult now, despite doing research, reflecting, therapy, writing, um, I have a lot of trauma that's connected to my immigration status before I became a naturalized citizen. I remember in elementary making fun of the color of my skin, where now I'm getting brave and I'm rolling up my sleeves. But it's been a very tough journey as an adult, being triggered back to that, where the color of my skin would dictate my immigration status. And because I knew that I wasn't here legally, it was like, this is something that I don't talk about. So let's not even talk about it. So what did I do? I would wear long sleeves intentionally, thinking, oh, that's going to prevent anybody from making the assumption. I remember also growing up, already having at that time it was a residence card, and being pulled over by police officers asking me if I was legal. And very hard-headed that I was, and hothead too. I remember being very confrontational with the police officer, like, well, you can't ask me that. You have no right to ask me that. You're not immigration. You're just a police officer. Many times being very close into potentially being arrested, but that was me being a hothead and being short-tempered. You, on the other hand, have been you're in good standing. That, for the record, I was never arrested or anything like that. But I just remember dealing with a lot of uncertainty, dealing with a lot of embarrassment of, man, people are looking at me different. This other thought of going to one of the alma maters, university that I went to, going to the student store and being spoken to in Spanish, and asking, oh, do you understand English? And it's like, oh, here's my alumni card. And it's like, oh, you're an alumni. Yes, I am. You're being judgmental based on the way I look.
Yeah.
That it triggers me so much, because it's so unfair that society labels you based on what you look. Have you ever gotten any of that type of experience from anybody?
You were just talking about it, and I thought of the initial thing I was thinking. It's been really tough for me to open up about my immigration status, to a point where my closest friends from high school, I told them until after high school. They never knew that. And I remember opening up to them, and I'm like, oh, well, I wasn't born here. And they're understanding. They know the facts, they know everything, but sometimes unintentionally they say things and I can't feel included.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, they plan trips, or they're like, oh, I go here, me and my family are going this place for a vacation. And I think to myself, it's a little triggering, because I can't do that. I don't have the privilege of going to Mexico and visiting my family because I can't come back.
Right.
And I know they don't do it intentionally, but it still stings a little.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, of course. So what are some, now that you touched on that topic, let's zoom into that. What are the restrictions of being a DACA recipient? You mentioned you can't leave the country. Can you visit the country at least?
In the beginning, they were allowing for DACA recipients to travel, but then when they started pushing the program back, a lot of students were getting stuck in Mexico that did have the permit. So everybody basically stopped traveling.
But you can go state to state here in the U.S.
State to state, yes.
You can.
But out of the country, no.
Out of the country, you can't. Can't even go to Canada.
No.
Oh.
And I'm being me and scared of the situation. I wouldn't even feel comfortable traveling to a different state, because you never know who you're gonna see.
Right.
I've known cases of people who didn't have they had their permit, but they were waiting for a renewal. They got stopped for not having your lights on, and they see that you don't have your driver's license, you get your permit rejected.
So you can apply for a driver's license being a DACA recipient?
You can. It's like, I know a person who, it was the same experience as mine, where they were waiting for their renewal because their permit had expired. But we have to drive, we have to continue. they were driving with their expired license
Mm-hmm.
and permit, and the police officer, I guess, wasn't having it. So whatever they did on their end, they rejected their renewal.
Yeah. Wow, that's deep. Again, I can't even begin to imagine that fear more than anything else. Um, what can you say that can help other students that are potentially in that situation of I renew it, but I'm staying under the radar because I'm the fear, and rightfully so.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give us some insight or give us some experiences that you've had that can you can share into saying, hey, you know what, it's not a bad thing because we're actually doing something good.
Mm-hmm.
What are some things that you've experienced so far that have been beneficial of being a DACA recipient?
I think the biggest thing, which is what I didn't do, reaching out.
Mm.
I know it's very hard, very difficult. The fear will not allow you to, but I think the best thing is to reach out.
Mm-hmm.
There's resources everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I've come to figure them out now with the organization that I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
Like even Carecen, they offer a lot. They offer internships for undocumented students. They offer jobs
Mm-hmm.
for undocumented students, even though they don't have a work permit. They find ways to help us. There's so many programs. It's just getting out of that fear
Mm-hmm.
and looking into them.
How did you overcome that fear?
I don't think I have
Not yet.
so well yet, but I think just finding people similar in my situation and being able to open up with them has kind of pushed me a little more.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think it's like we have to look. I feel like we have to put away the negative stereotypes and kind of shine light on the positive ones, show that we can do things that it's possible.
Give us some examples of those positive things that you can do.
Mm-hmm. I know she's like one of my mentors. I feel like her name's Melody, and she has pushed me so much. She's not a DACA recipient. She's just an undocumented student. She works with Carecen. She was an organizer for Surge when I first started. She even was able to go to Guatemala getting a permit with the country, and she works so well with helping other students. And I look up to her because she's shown me so much of my own growth.
Right.
And I feel like people like her, if we look up to them more and see what they're doing as undocumented students, that pushes us.
Yeah. So right now, are you employed?
Yes.
Who do you work for?
I work at a retail store, Didi's Discount.
And how is that like? Do you feel safe there?
Right now, since I have to renew my permit again, I'm still like, now I'm a little bit in fear. But since they know also my story, because I had to tell them, obviously, from last time, they help me a little more. They keep in mind my situation and try to help me.
Where are you at in your renewal? You're within that 132 days? Or what was it?
No, it expires in August.
In August. We're in... Okay, so you still have time before you have to renew it. Do you're pretty confident with it?
No.
What's the fear now?
I'm not sure how the timing is anymore because last time it took so long. So I'm hoping now they're back on track, given things kind of got better. Yeah. And
now let's go back into your academics. You're doing your pre-med. You want to be a pediatrician. Have you looked at other universities besides Cal State LA into seeing what resources they have for students that are in similar situation like you?
I have. I've spoken to a few other undocumented students that are doing it, and I know it's hard. It's really tough, especially the route that I decided to go with, getting a bachelor's in something else and then continuing. It's a very long time, a lot of resources, a lot of money. So I know it's very extensive and kind of seems impossible, but I know it is.
It is out of pocket that the applications come out of pocket for you? Okay. Yeah, eventually all of that adds up and just another added stress for you. You mentioned about your mentor. Tell us about the importance of having a mentor. I know a lot of students usually would ask, well, is there a mentor program that I can get into? The mentor that you look up to, are they in any program or is it just unofficially your mentor?
Unofficially. Because I met her with the Dreamer Center. Yeah, I think it's very important. Like, I consider you my mentor as well.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I think it's hard to see what you're doing yourself,
Right.
but when you talk to others that are seeing what you're accomplishing and they kind of shine light on it, it helps a lot.
Yeah.
You always tell me you're there to be my biggest cheerleader, and I feel like that's helped a lot because you always tell me you're doing a lot, but I feel like I'm doing nothing.
Yeah.
It's great to get that perspective from other people.
And it's thank you for that. It's very important for us to know and understand that in life we don't have to do it alone. And the more vulnerable we can be with other people and share stories. Now, I'm not saying for us to put our private lives out there, but to be able to have a conversation with someone that has gone through a similar path, they can give you their expertise or their experience that can be beneficial to you. I remember our first conversation. I remember exactly what your mom just told me. You had this fear. You took one of my classes, and it was in the midst of COVID. I think it was fall of 2020, wasn't it? And I remember hearing you, because it was via Zoom, just hearing the crack in your voice, just thinking to myself, like, why is she afraid? Like, I'm not standing in front of her. And why in my mind, it was always, why does she think I'm not going to help her? Why doesn't she just ask me? And eventually when we started having more conversations, they became more frequent. And it was like, yeah, this is, you can do this. Is it important for you to see people that that you can identify with? Is that something important to you, where you get that sense of safety, you get that sense of, this is someone that I can reach out to? Or is it just your personality that you just don't want to ask for help? What is it?
I think it is important to see someone, now that I'm like a little more grown and having an experience like with you reaching out. It's important to see someone, even like Latino, to see somebody who's done it and they continue. But I think it's just part of my personality of having that fear that I just always closed off in anything.
Yeah, and reflecting and back into being a student, I remember just feeling this imposter syndrome, and to saying, well, no, they don't want to help me, and not having that identification with my professors was very critical of me in not reaching out for help. Through conversations with you and other students, I get that, hey, you know what? If you've made it to a point where I want to get to, then I have an opportunity to do it too with your support. It's very important. It's also important for us to understand that professors, we're here to help you. We want you to be successful. We want to see you be successful. Yes, we have to grade hard. Yeah. Yes, we have to have boundaries and expectations and syllabus that looks like a legally binding contract, because it is. But that's the road that we have to take. But that doesn't mean that we're not going to be flexible with you to help you. Have you ever had any professors that you just felt, I just can't with you because you're going to use that against me? You touched on it a little bit, but have you ever genuinely felt that I just can't and I won't?
Yes. And it I don't like to say it because it's especially my career, especially any of my biology professors, I felt more closed off with them. And I think it's more so because they're white or African American. They kind of don't understand the struggles of being Latino. So I've struggled in those classes. I don't know if you've met any students who are like pre-med. They're really hard.
Yeah.
Very tough. So much work. And I need that extra help, but I just don't want to reach out because I feel like once I say I'm undocumented, I'm doing this, their view will change and they won't be open.
So let me challenge you. Do you think that's just in your head?
Yes, it is.
Right?
It is.
Yeah. And do you think imposter syndrome has a lot to do with it?
Yeah. Because I feel like the odds of everything out there, the politics, everything is for me not to make it. Right. And I think I am now that I'm...
Yes, you've already accomplished a lot. Yes.
It feels like it shouldn't have happened.
Right.
If every challenge that I faced to get here, it feels like I shouldn't be here.
Yeah, and it's so interesting on how it sort of gets passed down to us. Where, like, to me, my mom telling me and my dad... constantly telling us, stay under the radar.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they're not going to help you. Oh, they're different ethnicity, race. They're not going to help you. Based on their experience, that's what they gone through. Believe that everybody,
Mm-hmm.
they're overgeneralizing that into saying that everyone from that race, from that background, they're not going to help you. When in reality, it's like, no, that's not actually true, because we want you to be successful. We want you to see there. But again, identification, I think, is very critical, very important. For a lot of our audience, they're going into a profession where they sort of don't see that representation yet. But
Mm-hmm.
that's, we shouldn't see that as a barrier. We should see, and to me, in my eyes, it's a motivation, saying, well,
Yeah.
hey, you know what, there isn't a Mexican there, but just wait.
Yeah. We're
I'm gonna,
coming.
yeah, I'm gonna be the first Mexican there, and then here comes Anna, and then here comes everyone else that
Mm-hmm.
has a similar background, not just Mexican, but anyone else that wants to have that opportunity to make it.
Mm-hmm. That's what I always say. I feel like I'm trying my best.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't accomplish, I'm gonna accomplish it. I need to
You
put
are,
that in my mind.
you are,
If I don't get to that, I at least want to set an example for others.
right.
Just for them to have someone like, oh, she graduated
Mm-hmm.
from the university.
Yeah. What was graduation like?
I don't. A lot of emotions.
Uh-huh.
I felt like finally, but then I was scared. I was like, okay, what's next?
Yeah. And what is next? After pre-med, what's next?
Going to med school,
And then?
becoming a pediatrician.
And then you're going to celebrate your accomplishments
Mhm.
with your mom and your support system, into saying that despite of what you've been through, you've found a way to get there. And the interesting thing about it is that your journey, the barriers, the challenges that you see
Mhm.
really weren't as magnified as you saw them. They were magnified because fear.
Yeah.
Right? When you found resources or other individuals that were just willing to help you or even listen to you,
Mhm.
and I'm sure that changed, right? And
Yeah.
it shed a lot of light into darkness that you pretty much cultivated on your own. Um, don't forget to celebrate yourself. Don't forget to be that resource for other people, and to saying like, hey, you know what? I did it.
Mhm.
And now it's my turn to go back. I'm not sure you remember, one of the things that I tell my students in all my classes at the beginning of the semester is, you're going to owe me when we're done. And then at the very last day, I tell you, now you're going to pay me back.
Mhm.
And that payback is to be a resource for someone else.
Yeah.
For us to change the process of becoming a citizenship, is we need to be in those leadership positions and not forget
Yeah.
the journey that we've gone through, to make, not to make it easier, not to just have an open gate, but make an avenue for people to be able to go through a similar path, and then with more resources now that you're there. What do you see yourself doing for other people that are in similar positions as you?
I think initially starting off, just sharing my story. I feel like if I had
You're doing it
someone
now.
like myself
So thank
to
you for
do
that.
it, I feel like a lot of other students would open up.
Yeah.
I would love to continue to fight. I know last year I did my first protest. I went to May Day, which is here in LA.
Yeah.
I think just going to the events, proving that there's students like us who are pushing through, it's like that little seed that will start everything. Just shining light on those who are really trying to stick it through.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And protesting different from rioting, right? You mean protesting with a good cause?
Yes. A
Right.
peaceful protest.
A peaceful protest. That's always very beneficial. Have you gotten any students that, or any of your peers that have come to you and say, hey, you know what? Can you help me?
Yes. And I feel like, again, like an imposter, like, why would I help?
Yeah.
How can I help, you know?
Mhm.
But then I sit back and I'm thinking, well, probably what I've done, the resources I've found can help somebody else. It's just me sharing them with them.
Right.
And again, it's like really different because I've met a lot of people without the DACA permit since nobody can apply no more. And I see their struggles and I feel a little more privileged since I do have it. But I can't imagine them having nothing. They can't apply to a job because they don't have the work permit. I'm at least privileged enough to have it, and I can work and continue to pay my studies. But when I put myself in their shoes, what are they doing? They really have to seek out more.
On that work permit, I'm just curious, is it, do you think employers might use it against you? Is it just saying,
I
yeah.
think they do. Because again, they can be like, oh, well, they're on a permit basis. Why am
Mhm.
I going to keep them if we have to go through this whole situation in the next 2 years?
But you're determined to be committed for as long as they're willing to employ you.
Yes.
And then when you finish your academic career, you're going to go out there and change a lot of avenues for people to make it worth it. Because
Mhm.
it has it been worth it for you?
In the long run, yes.
Yeah,
I'm getting closer to where I want to be.
right. Yeah. I can't imagine how proud your mom must feel
Mm-hmm.
in everything that you've gone through and what you continue to do. Um, what would you want to tell her?
She's another one, my biggest cheerleader.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if I didn't have her by my side, I wouldn't be
Mm-hmm.
here. If it weren't when I was that little girl and she told me to get an
Mm-hmm.
education, regardless of where you are, your legal status, if she wasn't there telling me, I don't think I would have been here.
Yeah, that's important because I know a lot of the times the argument is, well, I'm the one that's taking the test and I'm the one that's writing the paper. And granted, yes, you are,
Mm-hmm.
but having that cheerleader, having that support system it's very critical. It's very important because it gives you that fuel, that fire, and to continue
I don't think I
pursuing.
can. I don't think I can ever give her anything to repay
Yeah,
everything she's done.
yeah. I'm sure she's proud of you. I know she is. um, what advice would you give students that are in similar situation? I've asked you similar, but what would be the one thing that you can tell them that are watching? And so one to not give up, and two and to keep looking. What would you tell them?
I think you touched on it. Be vulnerable. That's the hardest part, but be vulnerable because when you start opening and other people catch on to that, that's when the opportunities
Mhm.
come. But it's just being vulnerable and speaking on it, not being shamed anymore. It's really hard to get through the emotions that you're feeling, but
Mhm.
once you can push through that, that's really helpful.
Yeah, it's very important. Vulnerability has nothing to do with being weak.
Mm-hmm.
It has everything to do with being human
Mm-hmm.
and saying, hey, I'm not perfect, but I want to do something with my life. And I really admire you. Since the very first conversation we had, I remember telling you how much I admire you into sharing your vulnerability and having that determination to want to do something with your life. I'm very happy and proud of everything you've accomplished. Keep fighting. We're here cheering you on. I hope this was beneficial to our viewers. I'm sure it has been. Thank you so much for your time, your
Thank you.
experience. And until next episode, I'll see you guys later.
Capture the passion.